This short film and audio is for a mature audience only, not suitable for politically correct viewers. Political correctness is unavailable here.
Make it happen,
Yeah,
Jennifer.
we're making it happen. Welcome to our talk show. And my guest co-host is George Fanala, and we've been doing this for over a week. And George kind of fell into a guest co-host position because there's so much that George has to share life experiences, and I feel like George has so much to tell you. And one of them is a story about the boy with the two sets of books, and this story is about life, how to break free, how the books he had, and he's going to tell the story himself. I'm not going to go any further. Welcome back to the broadcast, my co-host George Fanala.
Well, hello, Jennifer, and thank you for putting me on your program. And what I have to talk about today, I think you'll find very interesting, and I hope your audience does too. You know, when you're in an oppressive situation, you grow up in a C-minus town, going to a C-minus high school, and about all you have to look forward to is a C-minus future. You look at the movie October Skies about the boys in West Virginia that had that situation, and they built rockets, and one became an engineer. Well, in my little town back there in western Pennsylvania, it was a lot like that. Well, and then you'd go to high school, and it wasn't a very great high school. And they gave you a set of books, and you put them on your desk, and you did their little lesson plans. That wasn't very interesting, not too hard to do. But I decided that I was going to break out of that, and I'm going to get a real education, even if I had to do it on my own. So I got me my books on rocketry and space travel and astronomy, and I carried through my entire school years, junior high and high school, two sets of books, theirs and mine. And I would go into class, put theirs on top of the desk, and follow along with the lecture and answer the questions. But on my lap were my books, rocketry, mathematics, physics, astronomy, and fighter pilot books. And the teachers would notice this, and they would come up to me and chastise me. What do you think you're doing? And I said, I'm getting an education. That's what I'm doing. And since I answered their questions, after a while, they stopped harassing me. And I just became known in the high school as the boy who carried two sets of books, ours and his. And they left me alone because I got good grades. I was a better student in the school. And I educated myself into the subjects that I wanted to make a career in, which was space travel, rocketry, missiles, being a fighter pilot. And it came to be that was my motif, my identity. So intellectually, that was my way of mentally breaking loose from the small-mindedness. And I would encourage everybody to look at the movie October Skies, true story of the boys in West Virginia, not far from where I grew up, who broke free the same way by studying rocketry on their own, and one of them became an aerospace engineer. And that's their story is my story. Now, that's one part of liberation, is mental liberation.
Yeah.
The other part is physical liberation. Now, the way I was able to accomplish that is I worked on a farm, and I saved up $28, and I told my parents that I was going one day, when school was out, that I was going to go see the country. And I packed a backpack, a couple of pair of jeans, shirts, socks, and with $28, I hit the road to see America. And oh boy, did I see America. Thousands of miles. I saw the West, the magnificent Teton Mountains. I worked up in Cody, Wyoming, wiring root beer stands. I slept on the ground. Sometimes the police would just put me in jail and let me out the next morning after I told them that I was just trying to see the country. And I have many interesting stories that I could tell, but they would take a long time, of people that I met, some good, some bad, some ugly. But you're living by your wits on the open road. It's kind of like something right out of The Journey of Nadigan, if you know what that movie is, where you're tramping throughout the country. She did it by train, and I did it by thumb. And there are books called like A Walk Across America, The Talk Into the Wilderness. There was a movie. That guy didn't survive. He died.
Hey,
But
George.
yeah.
George, does this this is woven into the book From Here to Hell and Back Again, because I want people to know that we were in the process of writing a book together, or
Right.
or putting together a collection of things, and this is a part of the collection: the interviews, the audio version, like it's almost a mini audio book, and it's small. This to me is one of those stories that gives you another perspective of From Here to Hell and Back Again. If you got a chance to listen to the other audios, is that what it is?
Exactly. In other words, the reason the part about getting back again is in there. You can be put in hell, but you don't have to stay there.
Yeah.
You break loose, and you break loose in two ways at least. Probably more, but you break loose mentally and you break loose physically. Well, with the carrying the two sets of books was the mental. I didn't let a bad or a C- high school keep me from getting an education. I got it on my own with the library books that I checked out, and I took proactive action. You know what I mean? I went out and got myself educated so I could go to Penn State later and succeed there. And
you went to school. You went to school during the time there was school. There was prayer in school, right?
Yeah, and I never been out of Pennsylvania my whole life. And I said, you know what? There's more to this world than this little mindless neighborhood that I'm in. It's jealous, greedy people that treated me badly, orphanages and whatever. And I went out and found them. I got on the open road with my $28 and my thumb and my backpack. A World War II backpack full of my essentials, and away I went. I lived on a bowl of soup a day, and I had 1 egg in the morning. I remember I go to a restaurant with 1 egg. They looked at me like I was crazy.
I have a question. Back then, $28 got you a lot further. Is that what happened?
Well, it got you a lot further, but it's not a lot to start off with.
No matter what,
like I took thousands of miles. I mean, I had to, live by my wits and work along the way. And people were kind to me and bought me a meal. I could tell you so many stories. I met America at a time when the people were the salt of the earth, most of them. And when they found out a young man was out to see America, a lot of them were very nice to me, gave me rides, bought me a sandwich, a little breakfast, gave me something to eat. And it was like right out of the movie Journey of Nadigan. You'd be amazed how kind Americans are when they think that you are not a crook, and they could see I was a clean-cut kind of guy.
Kindness. Kindness.
I could tell you the story of Paul the Painter. It's in my book, and the people up in Cody, Wyoming, and so many wonderful stories. Mr. David was electric. Up in Cody, he invited me to stay up there and be an electrical apprentice and work with him, and I would have had a wonderful life, I'm sure. Because up there in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, is where it was just starting to boom back then, and right now it's just a resort, a destination.
And it all started with a boy with 2 sets of books. I want to remember this conversation where it starts and ends. I also wanted to ask you, because I know Wyoming, we're going to get back to that because you didn't tell me that yet.
Yeah, that's a whole bunch of stories there.
You got some stories that are going to be woven into the book From Here to Hell and Back Again. And
they're in the book, yeah.
And the story about hitchhiking across United States, literally, that's almost what happened. You had
thousands of miles. And, down in Mexico and up, all over. So mainly the West is what fascinated me. I was in love with him. There's an old story about I was a boy with a bus ticket and a dream. Well, in my case, I was a boy with a thumb, a backpack, and a dream. And my cousins, we were young. We used to sit around and talk about someday going west. The dream was to go west, right? And I came back and I was like a hero to my cousins. He said, Georgie, we always talked about doing this, but you went out and did it. And they
Yeah.
were absolutely amazed that I survived
Yeah.
this journey, this odyssey on my wits, and came back in one piece because there is danger going on the open road. I mean, I was in places where if something would have happened to me, nobody would have ever known what became of me. I could have been killed, and they wouldn't even found my body. I mean, I was so far out in the middle of Indian reservations and remote places that it would have been, a mystery. Whatever happened to George Fanala?
I'm so grateful you're okay. I am so
And he
grateful.
never returned.
I'm so grateful you're
So,
okay because as
so
your cousin, I know I know that you've weathered some storms, and I've weathered some storms too, and it changes you. It could change you for the it could change you for the good, or it could change you for the ugly. And what I know is I believe in prayer. I think that prayer is what centered me tonight. We were having we were putting this show together, and I was reluctant because I didn't there was something going on in me that needed to be worked out. So I took a break and I prayed about this, and I can tell you that what George said about these mental prisons, it's like liberated by prayer and trust and faith. Like there are some key things in life. You have to have hope that this is going to end, whatever brokenness. And I see this little boy who's hitchhiking on that highway to get away from his bad home or a bad experience or anything. Because most people who leave their homes are leaving because something is gone terribly wrong at their home. And that's where we're both at. Like when I say the story is woven in with stories like this. You don't have to be in a literal prison to be in the prison.
right.
There are women on this who will be listening to this broadcast that know that it's a mental prison, and I've heard women talk about it. It's a battered wife is hasn't been abused in 10 years, yet she still feels battered. Those are the
Right.
mental prisons we're talking about. Like you don't have to be a prison in that prison anymore. And I love the
Jennifer,
story about the astronomy. So I want you to go back to that story where we started.
all right, I will, but I first want to tie this together, saying that the rarest commodity that I found in human beings, I've met a lot of intelligent people, good-looking people, smart people, but if they lack courage, they lack motivation, they are finished. And to do what I did on that open road, or with those two sets of books, above all, took courage because you're defying conventional logic in one case and heading out to the open road, putting your trust in strangers that you've never met, getting in their vehicle and hauling yourself thousands of miles away, not knowing where you're going to sleep that night, what you're going to eat, and to keep doing this for an extended period of time is a description of faith in humanity and above all courage. I mean, it's frightening to do that, and a lot of people they would never think of ever doing something like that because it takes courage, and they don't have what we see lacking in America today. Above all else, is a lack of courage to do what's right. Everybody knows the problems. Everybody knows what should be done. But if you lack the motivation, if you lack the courage to actually do something, I guarantee you nothing will get done.
It's
Okay?
because so many people are conditioned that they're the status quo. They stay within what the very very tightly woven lives, and sadly, in order to stay in that tightly woven life, you may end up cheating your own family. And there are family members. There are people that have cheated their own members of their family out of their inheritance, and
Right?
there are people they feel like they're established in their lives so much that they know how to get around and hurt people. And I just want you to all know that George is one of those people who was hurt that bad by some relatives of ours. And I too was in the same situation where we woke up one day and our house was for sale, and my parents didn't have any idea how you can sell a house without, the legal documents signed. It's happened to me, it's happened to George, and there are people that have that, who are well established in their lives, and they like the status quo. You are not the status quo, so that they know. Far from it.
Well, that's probably the upside of what happened to my father. Is after learning about what he did, I realized that he had to have a lot of courage to survive that ordeal. And I realized if I was his son, above all else, above intelligence, above good luck, I must have courage in my life to take a chance to go forth. And so I've always prided myself on that, having that attribute, that I will have the courage of a fighter pilot. If I wanted to be a fighter pilot, for example, the one element you must have to be a fighter pilot is you have to be fearless and confident. You cannot hesitate in air-to-air combat. You have to, if you don't have courage, and if you don't have that, you can have every other quality. You can be a great flyer, you can be skilled, you can be smart, you can have great eyesight, but if you do not have the courage to take on the enemy in a gunfight at 20,000 to 30,000 sight, knowing they're firing 20 millimeter cannons back at you, and you could blow into pieces any minute, then you're going to lose that fight. Well, the same thing on the open road. If you do not have courage to get out there in the morning on the open highway at sunrise, get into a stranger's vehicle, I'll tell you one quick story about Paul the Painter to illustrate this. I'm trying to go to the Grand Canyon, right? And I'm pointing to the sign that says 80 miles to the Grand Canyon. I thought I'd be really smart and have one hand point to the sign and put my thumb out with the other one, right? Well, this pickup truck stops, and I go up to him, and he says, well, I thought you were begging for a ride with your arms out like that. I said, no, I was just pointing to the sign. So I get in the vehicle, and this guy, he starts off, and he sounds rough as hell. I mean, he's talking about this stupid tourist and how they don't know anything, and vapor locks, and how he has to rescue him. He sounds like, oh my God, what have I gotten into this vehicle with? He says, look, I'm going out 200 miles into the Indian reservation, and if you want to go with me, we'll go, and then I'll return you back here to this point after we do that. And I'm thinking, all right, what the heck, I'll go with the flow. So off we go in this pickup truck. And this guy is cursing and carrying on like a lunatic, and I'm thinking, boy, I got myself into it. I'm going, God knows where to go, Indian reservation, with Paul the Painter. All right, so he stops at Gray Mountain or somewhere and gets 12 packs of beer. And he's my ride, and what he wants you, the windows are wide open, the wind's blowing like crazy, and in that truck, and he's sucking down his beers, and I'm thinking, boy, I'm going to end up dead. And then pretty soon he stops at a rest. You see some cats, kittens that somebody left abandoned. He puts them in the back of the truck, and he calmed down. He became a different guy, like gentle and kind, and I saw a different side of him. He rescued these animals that were going to be left to die, and he put them in his truck. So off we headed. And pretty soon he stops again. He says, we're only going 105 miles an hour. And he puts the tailgate down. He says, that'll help. And so then we start off, and now he's doing 115 miles an hour with that lack of air resistance. And he's happy, that we're blasting along across the reservation at 115 miles an hour. Then he stops at an Indian trading post. And, of course, there's nothing there but Indians. And I'm a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, and they were getting some sandwich meat for us, I guess, and bread. And these girls are coming around, these Indian girls, like, running their hands through my blonde hair and talking Indian language about something like they'll take me over to their teepee or something. And Paul comes out, and I said, we better get out of here, or they're going to pick me up and take me into the Hogan and have their way with me. We better stay. He says, you're right, they don't see many white boys out here. So we jumped back. we jumped back in this truck after eating our sandwiches on the bed of the truck, right? Some bologna and cheese and ham or whatever we had, and bread, and I keep popping the cans to him, and he blasts along 115 miles an hour. We finally get to this Indian school, and he's, I guess, bidding for a paint job on that. He's a painter, and he does his business while I wait, and we head back at 115 miles an hour, reverse all that. And this guy is stopping and he's doing things along the way that aren't so nice, you know. And I'm going like, man, this guy's a loony, you know. And I'm going to bed out here. Nobody didn't even know what happened. He brought me back to the same point where he picked me up. And I headed on into the Grand Canyon to see that. But I'll never forget the time and the experience that I had with Paul the Painter going 115 miles an hour across.
So really, you traveled all that way around, and you didn't really. He was going the opposite direction of the Grand Canyon.
Well, yeah, he had to go into an Indian reserve. It wasn't. Yeah, it was not in the Grand Canyon. It was, next to it.
So basically, you were just on there for the ride.
I just was. I was out to see the world, see the West. So wherever people were going, I was going.
Oh,
wow.
Picked
me up, and they said they were going into 200 miles in the reserve. Young and naive as I was, I just went right along with them and trusted them.
Well,
that's how you are when you're young. You're courageous and
young and courageous. Yeah.
You can't conceive that anybody would be evil.
That's freedom, though. That's the when we were talking about, and we're going to be going to the court of public opinion here shortly, as we wrap it up, and we're talking about constitutional freedoms and liberties on this Memorial Day, and I want to do a special broadcast of the Memorial Day, being as it's the end of Memorial Day weekend, and we're almost at sundown. I want to thank you, George, for really bringing it in, like bringing us into the experience of what you went through. Because I'm going to be honest with you, most average Americans don't have stories like you have. There are people that have, though, and this will make you feel really good. Those are the things that make America great again.
And Jennifer, can I say one last thing?
Sure, go ahead.
I would say, I would recommend, do not let your kids do what I did. It was a different time in America back then. In those days, America was full of very kind people, and the drug scene hadn't hit that much, and you could probably just barely get away with what I did. I would not recommend anybody do.
Yeah.
Anybody that hears this, please don't let your kids. Don't anybody get the idea.
Well, we were talking about a time period in America where, you could get a lot further with $28. We're not talking about today at all. And George, you're 76 years old. You're sharing your experience. And what do they say in the AA programs? My dad was in AA. Share your experience, strength, and hope. And maybe in a way, that's how we have to look at it. Is my dad was in recovery, and I learned so much about what it was to live again. And a lot of us who've grown up around families who are dysfunctional, and it's not like as if they're hitting or punching kids or anything. We're talking about financial dysfunction, like their greed has gotten overkill. And you're going to hear more stories like that over time. We're going to end the broadcast, and we're going to go to the court of public opinion. We're going to talk about
one last word. Courage is a quality that's born out of experience. Because I could get on the open road and found out I could trust the average American out in the Midwest, in the western part of the USA, I gained confidence in myself that I could survive by my wits, and those people were good and they wouldn't hurt me. And that built up my courage for later life to do more, because I ran into good people. So many people were salt of the earth back then, of Americana. I mean, they were right out of Norman Rockwell's paintings. These were good American people, right out of the great Waldo Pepper movie, I would say. And that's how you get courage, having numerous experiences by a young person meeting great people as he grows up. And I met them on the open road.
That's
I didn't
beautiful.
meet them in my family so much, but I met them on the open road. I can tell you that.
Good. Good.
All right.
Yeah, because you're right. You didn't really meet a lot of nice people here, and you broke free. And that's kind of what it is that you didn't have to stay confined to the mediocre, C minus, C average lifestyle here, and you did break
Well,
free.
you,
And we all
well, you
think
know,
of you as a real hero because of that. So you're a legend. You really are. What you did was
Jennifer,
legendary.
when I left with $28, you know how much money I came home with? $3. I actually went thousands of miles when I started out with
Wow.
28, and I came home and I still had $3 in my pocket when I finally made it back home.
No
How was
kidding.
that? And I had gone thousands and thousands of miles across this country and traveled
Good
and
for you.
survived on my wits for all that time. I mean, it was astounding when you think about it. You know,
And it's all
it
woven
wasn't.
into this beautiful book and this collection of audio and video, and we're putting it together. And if you are considering maybe wanting to see the collection once it's complete, I encourage you, because once we have the finishing work done, like I want it to be in a CD pack, a CD DVD pack, and that way they can listen to the stories, and they can listen to they can see the DVD version of it. And believe me, if we get that far with the help and support and love of our friends and our family, I hope and pray we get this together, because this story is packed with sweet memories. And I just I mean, just George, you're a legend. I mean, that's all I can tell you.
Well, if I'm a good legend and somebody derives something positive out of my life, I'm happy. I risked a lot. I could have lost my life.
Yes, you
I
could have.
didn't, though, and I'm still here. But that's what courage is about. You
How
have to
about I
take
want
some
to
risks.
end? I want to end it with this. Whenever I saw George, I usually only see relatives like George at a funeral, and I was like awestruck by him, because he was there's not too many people in the Pittsburgh area that come home wearing a cowboy hat and boots. And I was just like, oh my gosh, he's a real deal. He's a real cowboy. I mean, how did we get so blessed? And that I'm just so happy you did this, because you may have changed a lot of people in our family who needed a way out, and that's really what it is to break free, is that you don't have to stay confined to your home. If you're that broken, beat up woman, you don't have to be confined to your house anymore. You can break free. And it doesn't mean you are in prison. It means that so many people are held back, and they're held back in their education. They're held back because they don't know how to read, or their adult literacy. You have keys to get out of that. And those the boy with the two sets of books is a great illustration that's woven into this story. Thank you, George. Do you have
Well,
anything
thank
else
you,
you want to
Jennifer.
say before we end the broadcast?
Yes, I want to thank you for putting this across the air because, I've been a teacher and I try to inspire young people all the time with stories like this and many others, not only about myself, but about other great men, like Korchak Zierakowski, who built Crazy Horse Mountain, or John Sobieski, his 20,000 man cavalry charge that saved Western Europe. There have been a lot of great men: Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie. They all have contributed. They had to build Boeing. Mr. Lear, who built the Learjet. Uh, I've had the opportunity to work with brilliant engineers. The inventor and the founder of Boeing 727, Max Steinmetz. And so I want to hope that I inspire even one student to have courage to go forward, break loose,
Break
be
free. That's
extraordinary,
right. And
be
this isn't a book.
extraordinary in some way.
This isn't a book about prison, so that people know it. It's about people who've had shattered lives and become whole again. And I met people like this, that they, even no matter how earth shattering some bad experience, maybe it's a bad marriage, maybe it's a bad bad relationship with your children, that you can become whole again. And I encourage you, and we're going to end the broadcast here. I just want you to know, though, that this is the road to healing and wholeness. And artwork is a great way to describe that brokenness in prison that you see in this image. And that those two sets of books are just a way to educate and become free. And I love this so much. We might even do a part two about the boy with the two sets of books, because we really didn't get into the flying and the engineering and the astronomy, because that's my deal. So
Okay.
we're gonna end this broadcast right now. But George, could you do another segment about the astronomy and the
I
flying?
sure could, Junior.
Uh I
No
think
problem.
we're really in for a good story. So stay tuned for more woven into that story of From Here to Hell and Back Again, because like I mean really that's who else, who better knows than, unless the people that tell it themselves, that have been on the road, who've traveled, who've been in this system as a teacher, who know firsthand that you can be free with the two sets of books. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for that story, George. That book is excellent. I can't wait to see what happens from here. Okay, God bless everybody.